Well, I hope you guys made it through the holidays okay. I know that the holidays can be really tough, and we're almost through them, just have New Year's that's left. And hopefully you guys have been able to find a way to cope and deal with the situation and reduce and minimize the stress and anxiety that your ex inevitably is going to put on you and your kids throughout the situation. A lot of this is about perspective. A lot of how you deal with it is how you look at the situation. And it's easy for me to say that, but because, I mean, I went through that same thing in the beginning stages of this. It was really hard to take that step back and look at things in a different light. I was talking with Debbie earlier today, and just, talking about the frustration of how, the ex hasn't had to work for 6 years, or actually, pretty much 18 years. Because it's times like this whenever the kids are like, oh, you're going back to work? And it's like, yeah, and I'm not going to take any more time off. And, when you're comparing that type of thing. Now, my point of this is that in the beginning of this, it really used to anger me because I was so frustrated that there wasn't a consequence or, some type of action that would hold the ex accountable. Her life, in my mind early on, didn't miss a beat. Everything stayed the same. She was able to do the exact same thing, live the exact same way, because of what I was paying her. I mean, it felt like everything was the same. Now, the problem with that thought process is that I wasn't looking at it from the big picture. I was looking at it from the victory points that I expected to make things fair, right? I mean, I was really angry at the beginning of this, and I was expecting her to have to get a job, stop living off me, have to deal with life, have to struggle with dealing with the politics at work and finding time off and all those type of things that I'd had to deal with for, my entire life. And when that didn't happen, it sent me for a tailspin because I was like, well, this isn't fair. This isn't, she's getting away with everything. She's not being held accountable for anything. And what I needed to be doing is focusing more on my environment. And it's tough, right? It's tough whenever you have somebody and you feel like they're getting away with something. And it doesn't matter how it manifests itself. In my situation, I'm talking about, I'm having to work and then I feel like I'm being a slave to this person to, that if I don't work, the state's going to come after me and all this drama and chaos and some of it's true, but a lot of it was just self-created panic that made the situation worse. On the flip side to this, if you're somebody who hasn't worked and your ex is not paying any money and you're struggling, it can feel the same way, especially, and it's the same thing, right? Especially like, wait a minute, this has happened. They're running off with their new life. They're doing everything that they've always been able to do. They're not being held accountable. It hasn't affected them. And you get fixated on that. You get fixated on the consequences that they're not having. And to be honest, it doesn't even matter. They're probably dealing with some consequences of their own and they create their own drama. So part of it is just, they live in chaos, so their whole life is going to be chaos anyways. Even if they're pretending like it's not, it is just because that's what they thrive in. So to roll this back about perspective is, it's about looking at what's really important. I saw a comment the other day from another person who made a comment saying, not on my video, on a different thing, saying, you kind of create your own drama. You just have to choose one day to not let things bother you and to be happy. And this person is getting just crucified by the state for back child support. They're seizing his accounts, all these different things have happened, but he is fundamentally happy. He's ecstatic about spending time with his kids. He's finding ways to work around it. Obviously, he's frustrated because, you know, of the things that are happening. But it's really about that perspective. It's about how you approach your situation. And you can approach it being angry and bitter. And all of us have the right to be angry and bitter. So I'm not saying that you don't. What I'm getting at is whenever you're dealing in those situations, it doesn't really help you. And the thing is there's a line, there's a period of time whenever you realize that you're doing a positive thing for yourself to let that go and focus on your new life, whatever that is. And you can only do that when you're ready, because I know I couldn't. Whenever, if I would have tried to act or look at things the way I'm looking at them right now, before I was ready to do it, it would have bothered me, because it would have felt to me that I was giving the ex a pass, that I wasn't setting boundaries, that I wasn't holding them accountable, that they were getting away with things, that they shouldn't have the nice, easy life, quote unquote, that they're having. And unless you're in a position to fight that and go to court and all those things, you really have to make the decision or the determination of, is it really worth it? Is it really worth doing that, fighting that fight? In the beginning, it is. In the beginning, you have to do it, because you're just not going to be able to let it go. It's one of those things, you know. So if you're in that phase where you're like, oh hell no, I'm not, you know, I'm not going to let them get away with things. I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to set those boundaries and I'm going to hold firm to it. And every time they jump at it, I'm going to go off on them. I get that. You have to do that for a period of time. The thing is, you're going to realize after a while that all it does is it keeps you bundled up, and it keeps you tense, and it keeps you fixated on all that negative, and it keeps you fixated on what they're doing, because you're looking for every little piece that you could jump on and say, oh, you did this wrong, oh, you did that wrong, you know, oh, you're late on this, oh, you didn't do that. And I did it. I mean, and I will say that, you know, I mean, it made me feel like I was taking some control of the situation when I was going through it. The reality is, all it was doing is it was holding me back. But again, it wasn't until I was so tired of fighting that fight, of playing those games, of doing those little back and forth emails and phone calls and texts that just were pointless. It never accomplished anything. There was not one time where I had a conversation via email, text, or on telephone, or even in person, where my ex went, oh my gosh, you're right. This is just a silly thing. We should really take a step back and look at this differently for the good of the kids. If you're dealing with a narcissist or somebody with strong toxic personality traits, it's not going to happen, because they can't. They look for the chaos. They need the chaos. They thrive in it, so they aren't going to ever do it. They're going to take it as an argument, and they're going to fight back. It's like, well, you took an inch, so I'm going to take an inch. It's crazy. And whenever you realize that you can just let that go and focus on yourself and on your experience with your kids when you have them, then that's when things start to change. So I hope that if you are still struggling with this, and that maybe you can think about this, and maybe that will help you get to that point to say, you know what, I need to do something different. I'm doing the same thing. I'm on this treadmill, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm not getting anywhere. And maybe you can take a step back and go, okay, what can I do differently to make me feel better? What technique or what approach, what view can I take to make my life a little bit better? And those are the baby steps that you'll be able to take that will start improving your situation significantly, although it does take time, and start pointing you in the right direction. Bottom line is, you're not going to change your ex. You're not going to get them to be the parent you want them to be. You're not going to get them to be involved the way you want them to be involved. It just isn't going to happen. They don't have the capacity for it. They don't have the empathy towards their own children to make it happen. It's you know, coming from somebody who's been doing this for 6 years, nothing's changed. It's the same stupid little games, the same thing, you know, that it's been from the beginning. The only difference is that I don't respond to her and I don't feed into her stuff and give her that supply and give her that fuel to keep going on. In some ways I think she probably thinks I am, but it's like I've been able to back off from it, and it's like she's over there. I do my own black hole thinking, and I mean, granted, when I was talking about earlier in the beginning of this video about the fact that she doesn't have to work and isn't doing anything, I mean, I guess I am thinking a little bit about it, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like, okay, it doesn't bother me the way it used to bother me. So hopefully you'll slowly get to that point too. So I'm going to wrap this video up, and hopefully you're doing okay, and I will chat with you on the next video. Take care.